Hello, today we're visiting with Dr. John Fox, who is president of the Boone Trace. And he's going to give us a tour of the sites, historic sites of Boone Trace, and tell us more about it. So John, could you put up our slideshow and see what we got?
Here we go. I'm going to hit the shared screen thing here. And we'll start right up here.
So our first slide tells about what we're doing, and we're going to start that with a video that John on his motorcycle. Give us a shot.
We're at Boone Station. This is where Daniel Boone lived for 4 years.
On his bike, John Fox is retracing history for pleasure and preservation. For the past 30 years, he's lived in the shadow of places where Boone lived while in Kentucky.
It just kind of dawned on me, you know, he was right here.
His curiosity piqued.
My house is right here. This is where we are right now.
Fox, a surgeon, began researching the route of Boone's Trace with surgeon-like precision.
The path that he blazed all the way from Cumberland Gap was to get to this point right here.
Fort Boonesboro, the northern terminus of the path Boone helped blaze in 1775.
Turns out it makes his fantastic motorcycle run.
A 194-mile route along country roads that hug creek banks and ridge lines.
Well, it follows the paths that the buffaloes and the Indians, and then Daniel Boone followed those paths to make his path. It's just the coolest ride ever.
Yet for John Fox, it's much more than a cool ride.
It's slipping away right before our eyes.
He's on a mission to preserve crucial points on the historic path.
And once they go, you lose them and you lose the marker of the trace.
Take Twitty's Fort in Madison County, the spot where Boone's axemen built a small shelter after an Indian attack. The site is threatened by Richmond's growth.
It just, it'll disappear. It'll just evolve away.
Then there's this spot on a farm in Laurel County.
This marks the famous fork in the road.
The junction where the Wilderness Road split from Boone's Trace and headed toward Danville.
Incredibly important. I mean, this was where it all happened.
Wood's Blockhouse was built here, the first permanent building in a wilderness that became Kentucky.
Which at that time, you know, was a scary, mysterious, dangerous place to be.
As he retraces the settlers' route west, Fox searches for allies in his crusade to preserve key junctures along the trace.
It needs to be preserved and protected.
Orny Joseph owns the farm where the paths split. He's eager to give the public access.
I want the people to know the history, and that is history.
You can walk remnants of Boone's Trace at Levi Jackson State Park.
It's this profound kind of feeling, you know, like it's almost like hallowed ground.
Still, for John Fox, his pilgrimage for preservation stretches as far as one's imagination.
You feel more open. You feel like Daniel Boone on a horse.
Can carry you on 2 wheels.
Well, it's not just a motorcycle ride. You feel like you've been there.
With photographer Chris Woosley, I'm Greg Stottlemyre. On Kentucky's back roads.
Thanks, John. That was quite a ride. Here is a map of early frontier trails into Kentucky, beginning in Virginia at Martin Station, going then through the Gap. And but number 1 path is the Warrior's Path. Tell us about that, John.
Okay, well, the Warrior's Path was the old ancient Indian trail that the Indians waged their wars along, and preceded kind of all of the other trails by a couple thousand years.
So what about Thomas Walker?
Well, he came in early in 1750. He preceded Boone by about 25 years and didn't get too far, but came in close enough that he actually named the Cumberland River, for one thing, and is the famous kind of where it kind of starts.
And then the Skaggs Trace, what is that?
Okay, Skaggs Trace also preceded Boone Trace about 10 years or so, and was a hunting trail. And he came in. It begins along about Flat Lick on the map there, and goes up to Hazel Patch. It's the yellow trail that leads off towards the west, and Crab Orchard, basically where it stopped. And Daniel Boone followed that to up to Hazel Patch, and then split and went north and left the old road, they called it, and went on up to Boonesboro.
So then we have the Boone Trace. What's the origin of the Boone Trace?
Okay, well, let's keep in mind that it was the very first road specifically for the purpose of bringing in people. Richard Henderson had acquired a lot of property up there and actually just needed a road to bring in people, sell them off a lot of the property and make some money, which never happened. But he literally hired Danny Boone to blaze this trail, which he did. And that was in 1775. And it was really the first road ever for that specific purpose, to bring in people in this part of the world. I mean, you had the Revolutionary War on the East Coast. People wanted to move west, and in the 1775, 1776 time, and he opened the road, and they followed. They came.
So, and then the Wilderness Road is number 5. What about the Wilderness Road?
Well, Boone Trace started it all, okay, and followed Skaggs Trace. You'll notice that Skaggs Trace goes off to the west. And they've got people starting in that direction, John Floyd and Benjamin Logan. And but when Boone opened the trail, then the people came in by the literally thousands, a couple 100,000 people came through there. And then Kentucky became a state because of all the new people. Now they got a government and all these people, and they said, we need a wagon road. And so they designed and constructed the Wilderness Road in 1796. It was Boone Trace was just a bridle path. The Wilderness Road was actually a wagon road to accommodate a lot of people. And then there was a shift of everybody using the Wilderness Road rather than Boone Trace, and it sort of just gradually disappeared over about 20 to 30 years.
So I can see that the trails have in common Flat Lick, and then they kind of disperse. But it's interesting that the Wilderness Road and the Boone Trace cross each other several times.
Well, when they decided to, you'll notice the Skaggs Trace is where the original fork in the road was. And that started them to the west when they decided to actually build the Wilderness Road. If you look at that map real carefully, down around Flat Lick, the Wilderness Road actually splits off to the east. And then they crisscross just south of London, and the Wilderness Road basically became Highway US 25 up to Mount Vernon, and then becomes Highway 150 over towards Louisville. And Boone Trace is more eastward.
Sure. So give us a timeline on the trail.
Yeah.
On all of these trails.
If you remember anything, remember 3 years. There was 1775 was Daniel Boone. Now the other trails, Skaggs Trace, Thomas Walker, Warrior's Path came before. It kind of started 1775. That was Boone Trace.
So give us a slide on that. Don't you have one?
Yeah, hang on one second. Go up to about 1792. That's when Kentucky became a state, with all these people coming in. And the Wilderness Road came in 1796. So that's 21 years after Boone Trace. Okay. And here's the timeline.
So the point is that the Warrior's Path is really old, 5,000 years at least. And then recently from 1750 to 1796. That period was the development of the influx of population into Kentucky. Well, that's an interesting setup. This is the end of part 1 of the Boone Trace. We will talk about part 2 in our next segment. Thank you. Join us, please, for the second segment. Got it?